and welcome to this IABM TV interview. I'm delighted to be joined by Richard Jacklin, who is the Global Sales and Business Development Director at ViaLite. Hi, Richard. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Hi, Lorenzo. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Richard is going to give us an update about ViaLite and their view on last year and this year as well. So let's start from last year, Richard. I want to start by asking you about how 2021 was for your business.
Thank you. Yeah. So just to sort of help people understand how ViaLite play, we exist really in the ground segment. So we're a company that help people move RF radio signals over long distances. So when you get to the sort of limits of 100 or 200 meters of RF coax, they become problematic. We basically take radio signals and we move them over hundreds or even kilometers, tens of kilometers, or even hundreds of kilometers. So that's kind of how we sit, and we have markets in SATCOM, sort of linking dishes through to network operation centers. We work in broadcast in sort of the camera systems, audio systems. We work in GPS and GNSS timing and navigational support, and lots in the kind of the military and the aerospace defense areas as well. So basically anywhere where there's an RF signal that needs to be moved long distance. That's just to kind of position where ViaLite are. So I think 2021 has obviously been an interesting year, and a year that has kind of just steadily improved all the way throughout the year. By the time we finished off the year, we actually were seeing record bookings for our products in a number of our sort of marketplaces. So SATCOM now has really come back very strongly now at the end of last year. There are lots of new satellite networks being deployed right now, lots of teleport expansion, and of course, lots of news around the LEO constellations that are being launched. So SATCOM's been very good. Broadcast has now, I'd say, for us, made a recovery. So obviously the year before, 2020, was pretty horrible, to be frank. Our business was driven very heavily with sporting events, and with many of those being cancelled because of COVID restrictions and travel, made broadcast very difficult in 2020. 2021, though, has been, I'd say, a real recovery. GPS distribution for timing signals has remained strong. We sell a lot into data centers, and that business has actually remained very strong all throughout COVID. People working with online systems and cloud-based systems has remained strong. So that part of the business has been very good. So I think, I'd say, after probably a bit of a bumpy 2020, 2021 was definitely an uplift. And that's the trajectory that we're seeing now right at the start of 2022.
Thanks, Richard. That's interesting, particularly, the distinction you made between 2020 and 2021, and good to hear that there's been some recovery and a partial, as we've seen, a partial return to normality as well in the world. If we look forward and if we look at this year, which has just started, what do you see as the future barriers for market growth going into 2022? Sure.
So I think, in our world, there's probably two sort of restraining factors that are still present. And these actually affect lots of technical industries. One being, of course, the kind of the restriction on travel and being still able to meet people face to face. I think that's obviously been very difficult in 2020 and 2021. There was only a few major shows that sort of made it through in 2021. So those were the ones that were kind of, from the Northern Hemisphere perspective, the ones that were in the summer period. So they were kind of lucky with their timing. If your shows were in the winter period where things have been, locked down in many countries, it's been difficult. And that lack of face-to-face contacts has been difficult in project initiation, getting the real backstory as to what's happening with customers and competitors and market trajectories. Virtual meetings are great, and it's had a real powerful impact, but it doesn't do everything. So hopefully 2022 we'll finally get that sorted out and we'll get the shows back on the road. I think the other major barrier, which of course everyone is talking about, is issues with the supply chain, and that became particularly acute, with semiconductor shortages earlier in last year. That started off with some of the larger scale ICs, so some of the larger microprocessors and FPGA type chips, but that's kind of now, that shortage and that supply chain restriction has kind of filtered down now into the other parts of the components. So even down to things like low dropout regulators, you can have long lead times in accessing. For a company like us, I mean, there's obviously mitigation tactics that you can employ. We've actually done a lot of advanced purchase, so buying things on back order. We've increased our stock levels. And in some extreme cases, we've actually taken an existing product and redesigned it for an available component. So there's things that we've had to do just to keep manufacturing and keep our product line delivering. And actually last year, we still managed to exceed 90% of on-time delivery for all of our deliveries. So we were quite pleased with that, actually, considering the challenges that have been, throughout that whole supply chain.
Thanks, Richard. Very interesting, both those points. I mean, very consistent with our research on this subject as well, in terms of the absence of face-to-face meetings, which are key in this industry, I think. But also the research we've done on the supply chain, which is showed in mid last year that 85% of MediaTek suppliers had issues sourcing hardware components.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that issue doesn't seem to be solved fully yet.
I think it's going to take the year to actually flesh out completely. Yeah.
Very interesting. And in looking again to 2022 from your business perspective, what new innovations have you got planned for this year?
So as a company, I suppose we have some central themes in terms of our development. Over the last few years, one of those themes is to continue to go up the RF spectrum. So we launched a new 6 gigahertz product last year, and that's doing extremely well. So we're now making that product more accessible to other marketplaces. We have an outdoor version of it that you can just throw outside with very little attention. So it makes it very usable in lots of markets like broadcast. One area we're always looking at trying to lower the cost where we can for our customers. So we've got a very nice mounting system, what we call the Blue OEM shelf. Sounds a bit nerdy, but basically we can put 8 modules inside a box, and it's useful for outside broadcast and those sort of production companies that need lots of channels in a nice sort of small area. We've done quite a lot of work on our general outdoor systems, and with the I suppose they're not climate change necessarily, but there's a lot of attention to making sure you get systems that can work reliably with carrier grade reliability, let's say, for outdoor conditions. So we've done lots of work on our outdoor systems, and we're now putting our full chassis systems in outdoor locations, and that's proving very, very popular. And I suppose one other product area which I was going to just quickly mention, and this is I suppose another general theme of the industry, and that is kind of our attention to resilience and cyber protection. So people think about that and they're thinking, well, it's going to be in the IP, the internet world, but actually we also need to protect the radio world as well. So we partnered with a company called Focus Telecom. They have a range of anti-jamming GPS protection products, which we've now integrated with ViaLite. So we've integrated it, we're reselling it, and we've packaged it. And the whole purpose is actually to try and help our customers be more resilient to those kind of jamming and spoofing type of attacks that unfortunately are on the increase, globally, and things need to be done about that now. So, people worry about their internet and IP. We also worry about the RF side, and that's what we're doing. So I think, going forward, some of those themes will continue for ViaLite. So the cyber protection, we've got more plans for this year. We've got some more products that we want to bring to market, but we'll also supplement that with other products that are going up further in the frequency and the spectrum as well. So we should have an exciting year. We've got some good products which we're coming to market, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed we can get out to some of the shows and show it, particularly the IBC show when that comes back on. So looking forward to 2022.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for sharing some insights on cyber as well, which is another important trend as you suggested. But generally, thanks so much for being with us today and for sharing some insights on your business, but also on general industry trends, which I found very interesting.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you, Lorenzo.